Trump and Sanders win, maybe not a surprise for most.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
We got a couple of smart guys to talk to us about the New Hampshire primary results and what happens next, and I'm going to hurry to our rundown so that we've got plenty of time for that. Good evening. It is a pleasure to have you aboard on My State of Mind. Let us just go to the rundown and kick around some issues that are... Laura's so excited about going to the rundown, she beat me to it. I know. It's just, we're... And she's yelling at me. This is a tough crew. Let me tell you something. All right, toll votes. Gee, that's a new issue. I know. I'm with you. I can't wait till it's over. Unfortunately, guess what? When it's over, it ain't going to be over anyway. Here's the latest at press time. Don't tell anybody. We record this show late in the afternoon on this day while the legislature is in the middle of voting on this matter, but here's the latest that we had.
It's had mixed reviews from the beginning. Governor Gina Raimondo's vision to use cash from truck tolls to fix the nation's worst bridges is close to becoming a reality.
We're finally getting around to fixing our problems.
It's the revenue source, the truck tolls, that have been most disputed. Last night, Ocean State Job Lot CEO says it's unfair to toll only large commercial trucks when all vehicles contribute in some way to road damage. Most eastern seaboard states toll all vehicles, charging trucks at a higher rate.
We're trying to be creative and innovative, solve our problems in the fairest way, and taxing or tolling, not everybody. The proposal we have gives us the money we need to get the job done, and as I say, puts the burden on the trucks that do the most damage.
The roadworks plan is expected to pass both the House and Senate. Lawmakers are up for re-election this fall, and opponents have already written up pink slips predicting they'll lose their seats if they vote yes. Some of your allies could be on the chopping block in November. Are you concerned?
We run for public office to do the work of the people and get things done. And I think people are going to be happy when they see that we have better roads.
First of all, that's baloney, because we won't know if there are better roads by the time 2016's elections come through. But she looks so happy and calm because she's won. It's going to happen. The House will have passed by the time you've seen this, the whole toll works project. The Senate will tomorrow. But you know what? I think she wins. She loses if she wins. She loses if she loses, because this is such a faulty science and such a faulty economic plan that it's going to come home to hurt her. Here's the issue. The gantries won't be up until 2017-ish. There's a presidential election, we're talking about it tonight, that will dominate the news cycles all the way through the summer and the fall. Most people are clueless, not you, don't be insulted, but most of your family and friends are clueless about the gantries and won't really recognize them until they're up, or know about them until they're up. What's that, okay? And so really the politics of this is to get it done fast now and let the chips fall where they may. And they won't fall in 2016. And by the time 2018 rolls around, the governor's up for re-election, she's out of here, especially if Hillary Clinton is able to pull this thing off, which is, I don't know, we'll see. In the meantime, behavior very, very bad at the House Finance Committee yesterday as they passed this thing through to the big floor. There was a little rat-a-tat-tat between the chairman of House Finance, Ray Gallison, and State Representative Patricia Morgan.
We did not receive all of the information that we
Representative Morgan, you're out of order. Representative
I know.
Connolly?
You can keep saying that, but the truth of the matter is I am not, because I am...
409, substitute A.
I am entitled to the information.
Please.
Ray Gallison has never been Major League, and he showed it yesterday. Rather than creating some kind of respect for the opposition party and allowing Representative Morgan 5 minutes to explain what information she thinks she doesn't have, he shut her mic off, which is the way they do it. And that's why when you've got power, it corrupts. And that was a corrupt piece of behavior which influences the way they do business more or less every day. You know what the worst thing is? No Republicans have stood up for Patricia Morgan since it happened yesterday. She is a lone wolf. She's the toughest man in the crew. And she's got nobody with her, period. It's embarrassing for the Republican Party. I expect that kind of behavior from the Democrat, Gallison, I expect that she'd have a flank. All right. And Mike Collins, the guy from M&D Construction yesterday, or trucking I should say, was here yesterday to explain to you that the economics of this toll don't work. Can you make any sense of this?
Don't have enough truck volume. Their truck volume is based on 6,400 and something units per day, generating that. It was originally $40 million. When asked about the maintenance factors and stuff, they rolled back in the $5 million, so their net still comes out the same, okay, bringing them back to where they're trying to be. They don't have 6,400 units.
You got to spend some time with this guy because he's the smartest guy in the room. He doesn't look at with the jacket and the whole. He's the smartest guy in the room, and no one's paying attention. He says $45 million projections will probably net out around $5 million. We'll see. All right, state of the city. Actually, we're going to talk about Pawtucket for a second and rebuilding McCoy. A couple of headlines real quick here that talk about Larry Lucchino, the Red Sox boss, former, and now the Paw Sox owner, current, discussing whether or not there'll be some permanency at Pawtucket.
Can't predict the future as to when we're going to know definitively. We're going to have a short-term focus, trying to get this franchise back up to the level we think it should be at.
Mr. Lucchino, a brilliant man, has a real brain spasm over this, big time. You see, you can't cheat on your spouse, go to counseling, and offer nothing for a comeback, and then ask, can we have the relationship back the way it used to be? What you have to do is put it in writing or sell your left arm or your left whatever to prove that it'll never happen again. And the way the Paw Sox proved to the community that it'll never happen again is by putting it in writing. Anything less than that is insufficient, and you're not going to reset with the fans, period. State of the city last night, resurgence coming, says the headlines. Yeah, Jorge Alores is getting a little bit of a headline roll here, and of course, it was all sweet and apple pie and all of that during the speech.
We will strive to be the very best at everything that we do, and we won't be satisfied until we achieve it.
Me tear up. It was such a nice sentiment. Here's the thing. He's got a lot of great ideas. What he doesn't tell you is that his $5 million savings idea to reorganize with the fire department and the fire union and all of that is about to blow up about $20 million worth of state Supreme Court decision, which will probably affect every other program that he thinks he's got going to reorganize the city. He's smiling now. My prediction is in about 6 to 8 months, not so much. It's Ash Wednesday. No, oh, well, maybe you could, oh, this early? You're forgiven. The Pope will forgive you. This is the year of mercy. Look, you know what? It is a different year under this Pope. It feels that way. There's Bishop Taubman in what we call B-roll. But this morning at Mass, local priests offered a couple of, I think, easy tips for Advent. Knock off one sinful act that you kind of do on a regular basis. You figure it out. I got mine figured out. Number 2, add a prayer day. And number 3, add a spiritual something during the entire season. That's not so hard. The modern church. All righty. There was an election, or a primary, almost the same thing, in New Hampshire last night. Here's the latest on it. Oh, here's the headline, and here's the latest on it.
Oh, wow.
Donald Trump dominated the New Hampshire Republican primary, winning 35% of the vote. He appeared on CBS this morning saying his popularity will continue to grow.
Tonight I'm going to South Carolina. We're going to have at least 10,000 people.
Ohio Governor John Kasich placed second with his largely positive message, but he says he will fight back if attacked.
I'm not going to take a pounding. I'm not some kind of a pincushion or a marshmallow.
Ted Cruz came in third, followed closely by Jeb Bush, who says he's ready for a long fight.
I think the field will winnow down eventually. I'm a patient person.
And Marco Rubio, who stumbled at the last debate.
I did not do well on Saturday night, so listen to this. That will never happen again.
On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton is trying to recover from a brutal loss to Bernie Sanders. He won across the board, especially with young people.
Because of a huge voter turnout, and I say huge, we won.
I know I have some work to do, particularly with young people.
The Clinton camp quickly released a memo explaining why she's expected to do better in southern states where there are more communities of color.
Bernie!
Sanders is reaching out to minorities. He met with the Reverend Al Sharpton this morning in Harlem.
All right, so Dr. Jim Morone from Brown, the Taubman Center, returns. Welcome, Professor.
Good to be back
Great
here.
to have you back. And Noel Rubinton is a freelance journalist. Noel, thank you for coming. Short answers, then we'll have time to expand. Your gut check?
I'm glad I'm not running either party. That's a rebellion out there. Those people are out of control. This is going to be a very, very interesting campaign season.
I think a lot went according to plan, but as usual, there was a surprise which may last.
Oh, well, you'll just have to stay tuned to learn the surprise. Stay with us.
We're going to fight for every vote in every state. We're going to fight for real solutions that make a real difference in people's lives.
You know, one thing about Hillary is she cannot hide her emotion. If you don't think that that's an angry person right now, then you're not really paying attention, right?
The Hillary meltdown is just an amazing story. That is the second biggest defeat in New Hampshire primary history. We're talking about back to 1912. Kennedy beat someone you never heard of by a larger, but you know, a 10-point defeat, no big deal. Go to South Carolina, recoup. How you come back from a defeat that big? That's going to be the big question. Can Bernie attract black voters, Latino voters? If not, Hillary's back. But
well, let's talk amongst ourselves. You feel the same way about that, Noel?
I think it was a staggering loss for her. To lose women, not just young women, but to lose all women,
right,
is really just shows how this election is cutting across so many different levels and not lining up as people might have predicted.
Is New Hampshire behaving in any kind of anomaly type of way, or are they more this time around indicative of where the country is going?
Well, I think you have two front runners who really are the flip side of the same coin of outrage. And I think that that outrage tapped into what's going on in New Hampshire and other parts of the country where people are just so mad and frustrated, particularly on economic grounds.
What's so interesting is to watch the party elites in both cases say, well, that's not a serious candidate, and the Republicans are going crazy. Trump is completely out of control. Who do we get to knock him off? And then you watch the old guard talking about, you know, come back to Hillary, Gloria Steinem, blasting young voters, just begging them to come back. Nothing doing. It is, as you say, it's a real rebellion.
Well, it's really an interesting thing for those of us who are old enough to know Gloria Steinem. To hear her referred to as the old guard does kind of reflect on hey, time passes and you can't stop it, and it's a whole new ballgame out there, and a 73-year-old guy is grabbing the young voter.
When I saw him in New Hampshire in front of a hall full of students, he was a rock star to them. They weren't thinking about how old he was. They were just listening to what he said, and they were so excited.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Noel. What is it? What is the message? And you've seen it in person. What is the message that they are hearing from him that invigorates them so much?
It's that somebody's telling them, we're not going to take the status quo anymore. You're going to have a chance to help participate in a revolution and change things.
Well, here's the difference, I think, between, and I want to get Jim's take on this. I got to give Bernie Sanders credit. He's being true to form. His philosophies are well articulated. His winning message last night, I listened to the entire thing, it was so issue specific. Versus Donald Trump, that's not giving you anything other than maybe a sparse headline or a cliff note subject matter without the notes. You got to give Bernie credit. He is laying it all out there. Yes?
Yes. Authentic. What you see is what you get, and speaking to the great issue.
And God knows I don't want it. I'll tell you right here and now. But
there is a
he's
sense
giving it to you.
He agrees with you on one thing, and that's the system isn't listening to me. The system's broken, and I'm angry about it, and I will channel your anger.
Yeah, and you know, he wants to make college education free for everybody. I'm driving home listening to it on the satellite radio thinking to myself, well, the couple $100,000 that I'm in the hole for my kids' college education, do I get it paid back? Right?
That's the thing.
I'm like, what?
Now, I may get fired from my job because we do charge tuition.
Yeah,
at
you
Brown.
got your bill over there is.
But let me say, if you look at it from the younger generation's perspective, these kids are amassing huge loans.
It's a big problem.
And it's a burden as they go out into an unsecure job environment.
Can this political platform that Bernie Sanders is running here win on a national level?
Well, all the pundits, I think, would say no, but nobody would say he got this far. I mean, there's something going on this year, and nobody has found a way to turn around. And when I talked before about a surprise, I think maybe it wasn't a surprise to people
what's the
watching
surprise?
closely.
Sorry.
It was the performance of John Kasich.
Okay.
And to me, we kind of anointed another happy warrior in the history of Hubert Humphrey, and people don't remember Al Smith or Grover Cleveland, but there's this tradition of sunny optimists who are talking about what they believe in a positive way. And I think Kasich brought that out in a landscape that hasn't seen that at all this year. And I think he actually brings hope to people like Hillary or Jeb Bush, that if they can find a way to tap into that, they won't just be arguing with people who are saying everything's in decline.
Well, I got to tell you, other than some stutter-step debate performances where he looked a little abrasive trying to earn his time in the debates, Kasich runs a state successfully, which is the melting pot of American politics. A place I went to school in. I know Ohio, and they love him in Ohio. If he can survive this thing to get to a competitive place, who knows what happens?
And the other thing to say is that
Am I right about
presidential candidate, I mean, if whoever wins...
he's not going to take a Trump-esque,
Well,
is he?
we'll see about Trump. One thing about can Trump win, can Sanders win, there's one name that hasn't been in the news all that much. He's below the radar, and that's Michael Bloomberg. If we have a three-way race, anything's possible.
That was my next segment.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No, you see the electric's out of control? You're out of control.
I got to talk about Bloomberg.
All right, let's see if we can. You know what? All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about Bloomberg, and we'll see if we can talk about the Democrats in one spot and the Republicans in another spot, and then Bloomberg driving through the middle. Stay with us. All right, let's see if we can stay focused. That's my job. No, I mean, this is a great conversation. Republicans, news. Chris Christie, out. Ms. Fiorina, out today. We don't even have a headline for that at our production time because it just happened prior to our starting. What does that do, Noel, to the field?
Well, it starts to compact it, but there's still too many. I mean, it's still a fractured field, which plays for Trump. I mean, here he won this overwhelming victory with 34% of the vote. But if you have 2 or 3 people in a race, that doesn't happen anymore. You have to win a majority.
Let's not forget that Donald Trump hasn't crossed the 38-40% polling barrier. Never mind, primary results at this point.
Yes, that is right. I would not want to predict a Trump nomination, much less a Trump victory. He's a peculiar candidate. He's an unusual candidate. But boy, those results were pretty powerful yesterday. We thought he would underperform, and he didn't.
But who makes the deal? Who makes the deal? What establishment behavior occurs here where everyone gets in a room and says, all right, this has got to happen, it's got to happen now, meaning the Trump versus us thing? Who does that?
The other story that's big is the undercutting of the obvious deal that was emerging. Last night, Rubio really underperformed. And if there's ever been a campaign in which you don't want to be inauthentic, to be tarred as inauthentic, it's just a bad time.
Well, ironically, he's tarred inauthentic by a guy who just had to drop out.
Who just dropped out, and
right.
the gift he gives the Republican Party is taking the obvious solution to the Trump problem for the Republican Party and undercutting it. Can Rubio recover? That's the big question.
Trump wins South Carolina? Yes.
Oh, I don't see how anyone stops that.
And Nevada? Yes.
Looks like.
And Super Tuesday? And then what?
Most of them are. The Cruz is even, from the Republicans' perspective, from the Republican elite perspective, even worse.
So
he's the one that seems to have the juice to stop him in Super Tuesday state.
So is your gut telling you that it's a Cruz-Trump battle at the end?
I think that you're right, that the Republican establishment has to come together with someone. The problem is there's no one who's really performed well. Kasich maybe, but he's going to have a hard slog.
So he has kind of that broad appeal for a general election campaign.
He's got no money and no field in South Carolina.
But Bush has a ton of money.
Right.
So he's not going anywhere. So nobody's going to make that deal yet. It's going to take a while.
And it's more than a deal. Someone's got to light a fire. And what's striking about yesterday is Bush You know, sounds great, interesting man. He's not lighting a fire. He got 10% of the vote.
Well, I mean, I just wonder, no matter what Jeb tries to do here, he can't shake the last name, and maybe neither can Hillary at this point. I mean, this new blood feeling, at the end, can they actually overcome who they are with the American electorate based on what feels to be the non-status quo buzz here?
I think people are exhausted with the old. With the Democrats, I mean, they're kind of out of candidates. The Republicans still have some other people they could,
right.
But the Democrats, if it's not Hillary, it's going to be Bernie.
Well, what a great point. Is it a bigger freak show for the Democrats actually to be stuck with Bernie Sanders than it is for the Republicans to be stuck with Donald Trump?
Bernie Sanders speaks to the heart of the base. They love what he says, what he's always said.
The left ventricle of the base.
When I was in college, please don't tell anybody this. When I was in college, I organized for George McGovern. It was the most exciting time I've ever had.
That's why you're
we
at Brown.
Won.
That's why you're at Brown.
Right, and you remember his bumper sticker, right? Don't blame me. I was from McGovern.
Right.
I'm
from Massachusetts.
Right, so that was the one stadium.
But those of us in my generation will never forget what it felt like to watch 49 states go the other way. It was one of the great turning points of American politics.
Well, let's put it this way. If we have, by some chance, a Sanders victory and a Trump victory, here comes the former mayor of New York driving his truck right through the middle of this whole thing. Predictably, he is saying, I'm going to get in, and he's got billions. Can he jumpstart a race as an independent after the primary season?
So interestingly, about 2 months ago, I went to an event that he did having to do with climate change in New York. The first question from the audience was, why don't you run for president? He gave a 10-minute answer about dissecting why a third-party candidate could never win and he would never run.
Really?
And people still were like, say, run, run, run.
So that's half true. Third-party candidate can never win. You look at the roster of third-party candidates, it's abysmal. The only way you get anywhere is if you have a regional base, then you get some states. But you throw the party, you throw the election to someone who doesn't need to get above 40%. Now, you just said, can Trump get above 35? Well, if you've got someone throwing the election to the finish line is 38, 39, 40%, then anything can happen. But I want to say, Hillary's not done yet.
No.
There's still two big barriers. One is the African American and Latino vote, and second, there are all those party regulars who are the super delegates. So if you look at the count, Bernie has, 12 delegates now. So we're at the beginning. We're going to have a lot of fun over the next 3 months.
Yeah, if I had to bet, I bet she wins. She pulls it out. Somewhere America will start to think about first woman president as well, which has been lost in this conversation. Somewhere she's going to have to learn to relax and smile because she looks angry. This guy's having the time of his life on the ride of his life.
It's so fun.
And I don't think Bloomberg gets in, right? If it's Hillary and Trump, they just go at each other.
Right.
Is it Trump? Tell me. Is it Trump? Short answer.
I still find it hard to believe. But I haven't been able to figure out the last person, maybe you'll know, who was never elected to anything in life who won a presidential primary.
Wow. Is it Trump?
Dwight Eisenhower, I believe, is the answer to your question, but he was a big deal.
Yeah,
you know what I'm going to say?
Just ran a few troops.
I think it might be Trump.
All right, come back often, will you guys? That was terrific.
It's always fun.
Last word when we come back, Steve. Alexi, my producer, says, you've got to mention Beyonce, so I'm mentioning Beyonce. We have a headline here, Laura, and some video. I guess so. She's got this anti-law enforcement video, and for some reason, Red Lobster comes in as a prize if you act. And all of a sudden, Red Lobster's business goes through the roof. They're like the Trump of restaurants right now. Do they still have the peel and eat shrimp unlimited? I haven't been there in about 30 years. We'll have to check it out. See you on the radio tomorrow at noon. Bye.